All right, Shalom, Israel. I'm gonna label this a cold case. Talking about Nolan Wells, giving all praises to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, by Hashem Kakadash, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, double honors to the apostle, elder bishops, great millstone. Salutation to the brothers teaching word for the hopeful elect, soon to be like most high will, to the hopeful extend like Shalom blessing. Getting right into it. That we don't know if this was set up, and we don't know. We examine the news. Sometimes the news is set up, but we know the tension is real out there. Of course, the racial tension has always been out there. It's nothing new. So when Jake get kind of like, surprised by these things, it's like, why get surprised? These devils are like this. Been like this forever since came out the womb. Even going back to Cain, which is concerning Cain and Abel, and Cain slew Abel. He was cursed to look like them, and then he came out red at birth as Esau. So, John 10:10, it says the thief came not but to steal, kill, and destroy. It talks about that old serpent, the devil. It's nothing new under the sun. I mean, these are kind of some common scriptures. And it says, never trust thy enemy. I'm gonna read that. But, I Googled, because I saw Holly Robertson kind of getting involved. She was a prominent actor on the series, I think it was a 1980s series called 21 Jump Street. That's where I first known her from. And she was real pretty. I mean, she was one of the pretty much first, one of those that first grouped iconic black females in those diverse race, how you say it. She was like the one of the first black women, young black women, on those shows that show diversity of races, that they a lot of times played into the controversy surrounding racism in those episodes. And she's involved with this. I think she even, I don't know if she took a picture, but I don't know if she said something about him, but I don't know how involved she is. I just didn't read about that enough on it. But, here's him at his graduation. They're always going to show this picture, and probably not always, but, he's dressed, to me right here. That's him on the left with his girlfriend on the right. I guess that's his girlfriend. No, a mother, Slaki. That's his mother and father. But he kind of dressed like graduation. That's probably at his graduation. You never know how far this and deep these things go, these cases go. A lot of cases may concern the parents being Freemasons and all that, and having knowledge that they do make sacrifices of their children, to Molech, and it says that in the scriptures. That's neither here nor there in these cases, because pretty much we don't really know. We'll probably never know on this side. But, it is what it is. The staple of the conversations, that probably echo around the world is based on racial motive. And, he was seen, I guess, last with his friends, so-called friends, and they're all Edomites. Um, and they said he drowned, I think. Yeah, celebrations, which is, another death case that is always used in these kind of events when it involves a bigger um, evil, such as the Illuminati behind it. Like, and drugs and car accidents. I mean, it could be anything. The Illuminati uses, a lot of uh, death tactics, and when they publicize it, they say it could be anything: new disease, drowning, car accident, anything. But like they did with Malcolm Jamal Warner, his death was, you know, they say it was suspicious, and it was kind of like the same kind of thing. He went out there with some so-called friends, and I think they were Edomites. At least one Edomite went out there with him, or was out there in the waters, and witnessed it. So, they've had movies about this, and I forget that latest one that I saw. There was a black dude. It was just like this. A black dude. He went to a resort. They were celebrating. And they end up. I mean, in the movie they didn't kill him, but they tried to, and he tried to escape. And first everything was going on well. He was invited to. I'm talking about in this movie. He was invited by a couple of his Edomite friends, so-called white friends, to go to this resort. They were celebrating. It was something like this after, graduation or something, or they hadn't been out on a trip for a while. So they went to a resort, a remote place, and it started off with racial jokes, and that they didn't take as racial. The Edomites that was telling the racist jokes, they didn't take it. It was like, oh, we just messing with you, like friends do. But and a lot of times I believe that this happens on the grounds of college. They'll say stuff like, "Hey, dude, something about chicken, something about being black. Yeah, dude, you're the cool one, man. You're black, man. You're cool." And it could seem like borderline racist, or Jake might not know how to take it, and especially when you're young and unlearned, you really get taken for a loop. And they say, "No, relax, dude. Take a chill pill. I didn't mean it like that. It's just a joke, dude." But in any case, in that movie, tensions got high, and he was tired of the racial jokes, because everything basically turned out to be a racist joke, and so they were almost fighting. And he wanted to leave. He thought they were trying to kill him, which they probably were. But I think this happens a lot in college. I think when the Edomites grow up and they get into business and get into being older and taking care of being head of organizations and all that, they don't really. It's not really known of them. It has to be some weird Edomite. But this is when they in college and all that. This is basically them. I mean, them, and this is them all. This is them too in the older age. But it's like they're more occupied with things at the older age. When they just running around loose and really don't have any responsibilities, they'll murder somebody in a minute. That's their nature. And like I said, they still have it in them when they get older. They're just occupied with more, responsibilities. But they'll get if they get you in a remote place, in the mountains or the hills or what have you, or a vacation in a remote area, they'll do that. And it happens to women too. When a black female goes out with a white so-called colleague friends, it happens to the woman too. So, you know, um, and a lot of Jakes live that life. They grow up in that life. They live that life, and sometimes, and maybe more times than some, they don't get murdered. But this raises awareness in the eyebrows of our people because they know that spirit is still there. Because it's easy to forget, well, for our people, not us, but it's easy for them to forget, especially if they live in well off. When you're in college, it's easy to kind of, bypass a few years living well off. I mean, you got student loans and grants and all that, Pell Grants and all that, so you're not really subject to oppression. Same thing with the military. So you can kind of take it as, damn, this is a decent life, and these are my friends. But here we teaching the truth that they're never your friend. And these look like Edomites, like young Edomites. Like, you see, you got a beard. They probably, play Madden all day. What is that called? Madden, whatever it's called. And that other one, damn, I forget. Warcraft and all that, and drink beer all day, live on their parents' residence and something, their parents' farm and all that. Those look like these kind of Edomites that surf every weekend and go party and, tell butt fuck jokes and all that and faggot ass jokes and all that, So who would want to hang out with these dudes and shit, man? And Jake more times than some, they probably like figure that they the dude, like they the ones, because Edomite is always saying, hey dude, you're cool, man. And you change your hair or something, you get your hair braided from Afro, dude, you braid, what is it called? It is braided hair. Oh man, they always big Jake up in a way, because but it's kind of with two slices of jealousy. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you going out there, you're in the sun and don't have to use suntan lotion. I mean, it might sound silly, but these are the type of things that jealous of Jake. And Jake, these kind of Jakes may tend to lean more toward an Edomite life. Like, they probably never been in the ghetto, and they probably listen to Edomite music, Van Halen. Well, those are some of the old groups, Guns N' Roses and stuff. They probably know those songs and all that, or some of the new Edomite rock band songs. So, that's considered as a whole matter too with Jake, which Jake is just looking at it for, he's a black dude. They hated him. But did he like hanging around them? Does he live the life like them? Like that's all questionable too, man. So that's how we see in the spirit when we deal with issues like this, or talk about issues like this concerning Jacob and Esau. And sometimes, like we even said, sometimes who you think that might be Jake is not, and who you think that might be Esau is not. So we really, the spirit is deep. It's on another level of discernment. And but we are, we don't get triggered to where we like, oh shit, man. But we just know that the Edomites hate Jake, they hate Jake, Israelites. And then we paint a picture, in whatever case it may be, even if he was, enjoying it, and he believes he's just as you know, he believes that I'm talking about the black dude in this, that he acts like Edom, and he listened to Edomite songs, and he didn't come from the ghetto. We still kind of play off the cards of like, yeah, they hate him because he's Jake. Because you could be taken out the hood, or even not grow up from the hood, and still have Jake, and still your Jake. You still know how to, you know, do as Jake does. You know, you could dance on rhythm. You still eat your meat well done. And these are just some, basic, what do you call it, highlights. But Jake is more than that. Jake is more than that too. Jacob, he's intelligent. He's wise. Esau even said that. He supplanted me these 2 times. But in the cases like this, we just do it for truth's sake. We express it in for truth's sake, and how that Esau really hates Jacob. No matter what the case may have been between, he and his friends. So that's, we're here to edify. But, it says, never trust thine enemy. And I did a little rambling in there, man. That's in the Sirach, Apocrypha. It said, never trust thine enemy, straight to the point. In prosperity of a man, enemies will be grieved, but in his adversity, even a friend will depart. Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron, so iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Even if he humbles himself and goes about cringing, watch yourselves. And, these are 2. That's from King James Version. This is from Bible Gateway. Beware of him. Take good heed and beware of him. So, especially if you out there in a resort, in a remote area, and it's in a resort, and and then, yeah, you definitely gotta watch that, man. I mean, of course, in our eyes, we don't even go to bullshit like that, unless it's the brothers, It also says, who can make Ecclesiastes 7:13, consider the work of the Most High, for who can make that straight which he had made crooked? He made the so-called white man crooked. It said he abode not in the truth. Yahweh Shai said he was, murdered from the beginning. He was abode not in the truth, talking about Cain. And, it even says of Esau, the Most High is not in all his ways. And if he do good, it's unwillingly. So his character, his whole makeup is what these boys, these Edomite boys have displayed, being, caught. And I'm not sure the case. I'm not sure how it turned out. I'm not sure if they charged or they said that it was them, because I think they saying it's an accidental death right now. Accidental drowning, but they're not saying that now it's on suspicion. The parents are concerned. Nolan Wells' family presses for transparent investigation into his death. And it probably most likely was the case, man. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised. And here's the whole, I didn't even know it was a whole crew like this. Like, you see all them Edomite, come on, man. And it said be wide, look, pool party pic, boat video, friends speak out on what we know now. And, they have each other's back, so they're not going to tell who did it and what happened. I'm talking about these Edomites. But definitely, if you're the only, and it looks to, I don't know how they tell the story, but from this picture, it looks like he's the only black dude there. I don't know if he has ever been and how he grew up and how he was taught, and if he ever been in a racial situation. But you're definitely not supposed to do this. Go out there and it's like 20 Edomites, you the only Jake. Even if it was just two Jakes, that's not enough. Friends confirm I was the one yelling on the boat, not Nolan. Yeah, they're gonna say that. They're gonna cover themselves. But what did it say? He's the father of lies. Um, we know the scriptures, man. Esau has a perpetual hatred against Jacob. You know, and even if they say it was an accident, and even if they said, well, and it says if they do good, they do it unwillingly. Well, if they do bad, they do it because of Esau. Even if he just said we were arguing, we were drinking beer, I didn't mean to, push him off the boat, or I didn't mean to, we were playing around and we were just rough playing, and I didn't know I held him underwater that long. I don't know. I'm just using, analogies, but that he still was Esau. It's still Esau in him. Because now it could have been. We could have, and we have many issues and many news clips and videos of Jake shooting Jake. Gang banging and all that. It could have been if it would have been a Jake that killed another Jake in this in this same story, it wouldn't have been really news. You know what I'm saying? So it has me to think like this could be stage 2 or set up. But if it is real, it's still based, and it happens. And if it's fake, it is based on real events, because this stuff does happen. But my point with that is, when it comes to them taking Jake out like this and, hanging Jake and whatever they do to Jake, it expresses the very act of their whole being, the very character and the nature of their whole being, having a perpetual hatred against Jacob. And we use this platform for it to express that, so people will know. Even if it was an accident, even if them friends are really, truly, say that he is friends. Because if you have a black man that goes to college and never been in trouble and ain't coming from the hood, he listen to the same music, that's no adversity there to where you're able to point out an enemy. Because it says that a friend will be there in a time of adversity. So if there's no adversity, there's no way that you could tell if they're really your friends. So in this matter, there didn't even have to be an adversity, and this happened. And they say it's an accident, was an accident, and they said they're gonna, if they do investigate them, ask them questions, they're gonna say, no, I don't know what happened, we didn't do it. But even if that was the case, this is a highlight of news coming from the prophets expressing that this is the relationship that becomes deadly and always was, even in the womb of Jacob and Esau. And we keep telling them that over and over again. And it'll be Jake from 20 years ago. Every 2 to 5 years, it could be another case like this. And they say, well, yeah. And they get roused up and then dies back down. Because this is the only, it's story by story publicized, and what do you call it? And basically, so to speak, in particles. But when you add it all together and you say, well, damn, they've been murdering us since slavery and all that, and even in beyond, then it kind of like, yeah, damn. But of course, every now and then Jay can say, damn, this happened again. Get roused up, racial tension, and it dies back down. Jake goes back to college. He has Edomite friends, and then they'll tell him too, like, dude, I can't believe that happened to Nolan Wells, man. Fuck, dude, I would never have, I would never do that to you, dude. You're my friend, and he may not ever. But what remains is the truth that there is a spirit in Esau that has a perpetual hatred against the Negroes, Latino, and Native Americans. That will always be until he's taken out. No matter how nice they are, no matter how many times they shake your hand and give you a job, or how many times they invite you to a party without no death, without murdering you, that doesn't mean anything. What means everything is this factor that the truth of the matter is that they hate us. And if any adversity had come along for them to show that, it would definitely be there. And the craziest thing is, it would be there even if it's not adversity. Because it didn't seem like that with this case. Anyway, that's it. You know the scriptures, man. To the next video. I didn't even want to go this long, but to the next video. Shalom. Hope it was edifying.